Dumelang, Sanbonani, good day. 8 days left to the general election. Are you ready with your ID? Have you made up your mind on which party are you voting for? Today in studio, I have the UDM. The party is widely known by most people as a Xhosa party. It is led by General Holomisa. It has been in parliament since 1994, and you have seen General Holomisa being consistent on corruption and speaking out against any leader that has been found to be in corruption. Today I have in studio the premier candidate, Mthunzi Mason Mdwaba. Oh, what a name, Mthunzi Mason Mdwaba. Most of you remember him. He is a businessman, an organized global business leader, an activist, driven by human capital and development, amongst others. In the past, he served as a vice president and vice chairman of to the ILO in 2017 to 2021. He's a chairman of the Human Rights and Responsible Business Conduct Policy Working Group of the IOE, and he was a chairman of council at the University of the Western Cape in 2015 to 2018. He's also the CEO of T Zoro. My brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The premier candidate of the UDM. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
No, I'm well, my brother.
Yes.
Usually when people, someone like you with so much experience, one wouldn't think you go into politics. Why UDM? Why politics now?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of a mixture of gross stupidity and an element of madness. Somewhere in the middle there, you shall find the response. But I think from a serious point of view, it was just exhaustion with and frustration with things not working.
Yes.
I never thought I'd be in politics. I really never thought I'd be in politics. There are many things I have embraced readily. Politics took me a while to have it sink in. But when your country is in a mess,
yes,
and your friends keep saying, hey, we think you can do more than just, sit on the sides and comment every now and then and write an article every now and then. And then when I was sitting analyzing the State of the Nation, the last State of the Nation we had at a television station, I somehow hooked onto the deputy president of the UDM was speaking. I got interested in what he was saying. He made sense. And when I asked who he was, I was told. I then ended up doing some research.
Yes.
And I found that the UDM, by far, compared to any of the parties that had made approaches to recruit me on social media, was the one that resembled, or rather really resonated with me from a moral regeneration point of view, because I was trying to think that if I'm going to do something I never thought I would do, and I'm going to come up with something different, and what this difference is supposed to be aligned to my purpose. So I think it's also important right at the beginning to mention that at the time that I finished my term as the chairman of the council at UWC, I became certain that my purpose was global change, global impact, and global social justice. So anything I do is going to be aligned to that. And I felt that the UDM would be a very good vehicle towards that. That's really what happened.
But I think let's go back to your childhood. You said very proudly you're a proud rural boy.
Yes.
Where did you grow up, and how did it all start? You go into the business. You also mentions here you were part of Uber, Boards, Nedlag. You've been around. But let's start. Inspire somebody from the rural areas.
I'm a rural boy, proudly rural. Yes. I was actually there this past weekend. I surprised my mom and everybody because I thought I must also go and assist my president, premier-elect for the Eastern Cape, Bantu Holomisa, because it's my area, And it's not the rural place I come from is not a traditional Eastern Cape place. It's very different. In the olden days, we were under the Sky, we were under the Transkei, we were under South Africa. They didn't know what to do with us, right? and when you are born and you grow up there, you naturally can speak 4 languages if you want.
Okay.
Yes. So your languages are Xhosa, not even good Xhosa, Hlubi, really.
Who is the Stegspruit?
Stegspruit is the town. No, you see, me, I'm rural. Stegspruit is a town. Stegspruit, you're elevating me.
Okay.
Stegspruit is like 22 kilometers from my home. My home is you see cows and sheep and people's houses, little houses everywhere,
Molo,
we don't even Mdwaba because we speak Sotho, we speak fluent Sotho there, we speak Afrikaans, we speak English, I suppose, should be one. So that's why I'm saying we're not a traditionalist Eastern Cape. We're close to the Lesotho border. For example, where Steve Biko's friend crossed the border in Delabridge is about 30 kilometers or so from my home, right? The Free State is there, the Orange River. So we get snow there. Yeah,
Lucky
people, I don't know if it's lucky, it's very cold there. People go to Tiffendale, but I never knew Tiffendale until recently because, it was the Mlungu place, right? So people would come past and say, go to Tiffendale. What's Tiffendale? No, just on the other side of Bartley East. That's also close to my home. So that's why I grew up. Went to a proper Bantu education kind of schools. The one that I actually posted on X on the weekend, which broke my heart, is at Dipana Primary School, where I went to primary. I was one of the first people to go into that building. It's a dilapidated now building that's closed. There's no school there anymore. Kids have to walk like 4 kilometers to another school, little kids and whatever you. But that's where I went to school, then went to secondary, junior secondary, then went to high school there, Metromakulu Senior Secondary School. Stayed with my grandparents for most of my life up until matric. And the role that they played was that my grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
My grandfather used to be a pastor. He then left priesthood because he used to suffer from asthma. He then started walking many miles, picking up sheep and things that he would sell. That's how he started.
Okay.
Then he got a shop, then he got 2 shops, then he got 3 shops. And so as I was growing up, I was very fortunate to be a rural boy, though from a fairly good resourced family.
Yeah, so in terms you're called a cheese boy.
A cheese boy of the rural.
Yes.
Right? I didn't know the term at the time, but now I know a cheese boy of the rural.
Yeah.
And what that helped with was that it gave me the opportunity that I think most black children and most Africans don't have of being able to speak business language at a young age. I think that's what we are deprived of as black people. And people think we don't have we have the skill. Everybody has a skill. It's just that it depends on your socialization. My socialization was that. The second part of it was that my grandfather had lots of attitude. And I think because he had some money, it helped when we went to town. Lady Grey and Alival Noord. And there was the blankes and knee blankes diere, the white and the non-white doors. Yes. My grandfather would go into the white door. Yes, but he would park his car outside. So that's how I learned that, cars speak a language of their own. Because he would park the car, walk in, they would look at him, look at the car, and they would think, no, this is not the darky to fight.
He's a better black.
He's a better black, yeah. And maybe let's sell him what he wants. So I think I learned to have a kind of an attitudinal response to bullying and things like that at a young age, got confidence at a young age. All these things are things that are very important. Yes. I think when I look back and I try and figure, how is it that a rural boy ended up being the leader of all employers in the world, and I was the only African, still am the only African who's ever done it since 1919 in the United Nations. I think it's all of that, and they bought me books. I used to read Archie, I don't know if you still have those books these days, Archie and Jughead comics, and it's amazing how those things, I think, also help your innovative spirit. Yes. Comics like Superman and Spider-Man, they make you believe everything is possible. Everything is possible, right? So I read those. My grandmother used to buy Reader's Digest. And there was always a quiz in Reader's Digest, and humor is the best medicine, and all those kind of things that, I look back now. At the time, it was a nuisance. I was thinking, my God, must I read all these things? Again, he's brought another Reader's Digest. And she would, actually push me to say, if you do this and you win this, I'll buy you this and I'll buy you that. Sometimes you never really bought those things, but the point though is that I was always incentivized all the time. So I think that's my upbringing.
So you being are you also an alumni of UWC? Where did you study there?
No.
How did you get yourself in the board?
I'm an alumnus at Wits.
Oh, you're a Vetsy.
I'm a Vetsy. Was not happy with Wits until recently, so I won't go into that. They apologized.
It gives you the edge.
Does it? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. That's what they say.
Yes.
But my grandfather, I think, is also important to mention. Is a gentleman that is known as T.W. Kambule. People knew him as the mathematician who taught a lot of the people in this country. People like, I think, the Khang Mosenekes and many others. He was their principal and a maths teacher for all those people. He's got a building named after him at Wits called the T.W. Kambule Mathematical Sciences Building.
That's good.
Right? So I've got some good genes in me, right? Yeah, I think it's good to have genes. I might not have the talent myself, but I got the genes, certainly. So I can always tell people, hey, check me. Don't take me lightly, you know.
No.
But I think UWC. I went to UWC because there was a unionist by the name of Manene Samela who was from, I think he was from Naktu. And he just kept on calling me about how he needs people to be on the board at UWC, at council. We need to build UWC, and he's looking for a business representative. And because I was at BUSA, I was one of the vice presidents for Business Unity South Africa, which is the federation of business in this country. I was one of the people who would have to look for people to go and sit on these boards.
Yes.
But UWC was not a particularly attractive proposition for most of the business people. In fact, I've found that a lot of things that I've done, I've been there because they were not attractive for other people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They were not the BE, I'm going to make money kind of thing. You know, some people are driven by that. And I'm not judging them. I think we must all do things that work for us. You know, me, I was driven by the service. So I went to UWC. But as it turns out, as it's typically me, I tend to naturally gravitate towards trouble. Yeah, all the time. It's in fact, there was a time when I nearly had a complex about it. And so I got to UWC only to find that UWC had some big challenges. They had people on the council that were thinking they can run UWC like the little spaza shop. But the more I read about UWC from the board pack, the more I realized this was a very amazing university.
Wow.
You know, it's like almost like even when I went, I even had to confess to them and say to them, you know, when I came on this council, really, I was like, okay,
I'm skeptical about
why am I going there? What is it I'm going to do there and whatever you? And I even forgot that my one brother, who is, by the way, a CEO of probably one of the largest ICT companies in the world, is the vice president for Africa. He went there. He did computer science there, but I'd forgotten.
Wow.
And in my mind, you know, you went to UWC, because I think I also had the Wits snobbishness, right? In my mind, if you went to UWC or any of those universities, because you couldn't get to Wits or UCT or Rhodes or University of Pretoria or what.
Yeah, like a second option.
That kind of thing. Only stack. So he went there. My little sister, who traveled with me to go home this past weekend, also did her BAdmin there. She works as a senior facilities manager for a very big company. My son, my eldest son, went to UWC, but I wasn't thinking about all of this. Went to UWC. My son is the chief legal advisor for a big fund in Cape Town.
Wow.
Right? But they went to UWC. But aside from that, I was discovering that UWC is amazing. I would be told there's a building that was built for 250 million. I was thinking, UWC building 250 million? I want to see it.
Where's this money coming from?
So I go and have a look. Hey man, there's the building. Then they say, no, we have another building. It's called the biology building. Okay, I go see this building. My God, these are world-class kind of equipped. So I got there, but whilst I was there, got into a lot of trouble because I had to get rid of the bad apples on the council. And I fought hard. I made headlines for all the wrong reasons there of the newspapers in Cape Town. They used to call me names because these guys were connected to some of the editors and some of the journalists there in Cape Town. And Cape Town is their dorm, is their city. Eventually, I got rid of them though. And when I left a good legacy at UWC.
No, I'm glad, looking at your profile, looking at also the family lineage, how most of you have literally embraced education. And from what you just said now, it seems like most of you are doing quite well for yourselves. And now you are coming in as the premier candidate of the UDM in Gauteng province, the city that is the center of economy and the economic hub of the African continent. And as someone who has dealt a lot within the labor space, people are busy promising jobs. Are you also promising jobs to our people?
That is a good question. I'm promising change. I'm promising prosperity.
Okay.
I don't want to just promise jobs because, promising jobs sounds so, we need jobs. We're a country that has the highest unemployment rate in the world. That's not something to talk about, right? It's something that we should all change.
Yes.
But I think my sense is it is easy for everybody to promise jobs because that's what people want. But I think what we should be talking about is how do we bring economic prosperity and how do we bring back respect to Gauteng so that it is truly the economic hub of Africa, right? And so that Johannesburg in Gauteng is truly the city of gold, as it used to be called at the time, and so on, right? So for me, what I'm promising is turning around Gauteng. Gauteng is a turnaround case. Gauteng is a mess. South Africa is a mess, okay? And I've said in many of my interviews that we sit on the precipice of a cliff. And when you look at Gauteng and it contributes 33% of the GDP of this country, that's sizable. So if Gauteng has pneumonia, South Africa is definitely going to catch the bug.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So you want to make sure that Gauteng is functioning well, okay? And Gauteng mustn't survive because the inhabitants of Gauteng are surviving, right? We're surviving potholes. We have to do ducking when we drive on the roads, right? Why?
But Premier, people want to know, because jobs are the main issues that right now. How do we trust you, and what is your plan for job creation? Just briefly.
Okay. So if you want me to talk about jobs specifically, then, but as long as it's taken within a context of economic prosperity,
yes, definitely.
Productivity enhancement, competitiveness enhancement, all those things, if we are accepting that I'm going to work on those things at the same time, then what we need is an ecosystem of job creation. By an ecosystem, I mean a situation where you have a very deliberate, conscious focus on growth sectors. That's point number one. Because there's no point you go and focus on sectors that are shedding jobs. So if a sector is shedding jobs and retrenching, it would be foolhardy to go and focus on that. So you need, therefore, people who either have got access to the research or who are knowledgeable about those sectors. That's point number one. And I am. And the team we have at UDM, very diverse team, is well-versed at this. Secondly, what you need is to understand that when Cyril, in his 6th administration, renamed the Department of Labor and renamed it the Department of Employment and Labor, what Nlesi should have done, one of the guys that doesn't like me, what he should have done is he should have immediately realized that you don't change a name and then all of a sudden the behavior changes, right? Only a moron thinks that, and he is a moron.
But that has been the nature of this country, right? You change a street name,
and then now you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and you are groovy, things are working better. No. So what should have happened immediately is to have a policy on employment, right? In my capacity as the chairman of Productivity South Africa, before Nlesi kicked me out, unlawfully I might add, we tried to tell him what it is he must do with the entire economic cluster of government to change the policy and build a policy that is going to make sure that South Africa is aligned. So you need somebody who knows that we need a policy and we don't have it. And so it's not just a situation of creating jobs. It's understanding the skills we have and the skills we don't have. And if we have them, what do we do and where do we plug in them as a prioritization? And those we don't have, how quickly do we have them? Do we have them by doing a skills knowledge transfer, or do we have them by importing them from somewhere else, right? Or do we do a combination, whatever the case may be? Thirdly, you need to be able to have an ability in your ecosystem to enable entrepreneurs. Now, the challenge that South Africa has, indeed Africa, but let's focus on South Africa and Gauteng, is that we have a youthful demographic advantage. Everybody will tell you about this youthful demographic advantage,
Yes.
right? And we brag about it, which is good because we are a young nation. Other countries have got ageism. They've got aging populations, right? But the challenge with South Africa is that the 70% demographic advantage itself has 70% unemployment. So our highest unemployment comes from the youth.
Yes.
That is not sustainable. So how then do you work with creating jobs on the one hand, from what I've described already, in terms of focusing on the sectors that work and whatever, but also in terms of entrepreneurship enablement? How do you do entrepreneurship enablement that is successful, as opposed to innovative and entrepreneurship enablement where people start entrepreneurial endeavors, enterprises, but we have the highest failure rate of those enterprises because in between, we don't give the skills, we don't mentor these people, we don't make sure that they've got the right tools and skills to move on, but more importantly, they have no access to finance. The biggest pain is that South Africans, young South Africans, are expected to have collateral. Now, if you don't have Tatom Kulu like I had me back in the day, who maybe had a nice little something, what are you going to do?
But then somebody will say to you, we have had the NYDA, we have the Small Medium Enterprises Ministry. What do you think they're getting it wrong? Where did they go wrong? Why can't they be?
I don't think I know. So it's a different thing to think. That's why they call me arrogant, because I know, and they don't like it when you say you know. So here's where we get it wrong. First of all, we do patch jobs.
Okay.
So we do these. Let's start with the Presidential Youth Initiative, run by Cyril himself.
Yes.
23 point something billion. But he creates assistant teachers who are interns who last for 6 months to a year. And then he says he's creating jobs, right? And then at the end of a year, they're unemployed. I don't know if you're aware of this. At the end of the year, they go to the UIF. Now, my project that became a problem for this country with ministers wanting monies and all kinds of things through middlemen was telling them that you can't keep going to the UIF and looting it. The Unemployment Insurance Fund.
Yes.
You've got over 700,000 unemployment people on its database, right? So if you run the Presidential Youth Initiative with money you've taken from Treasury, right? You then build people that are employed for a year, and then you release them, and they go and now claim from the UIF. Now remember, the UIF works on a 4-year arrangement.
Period,
So if you pay your UIF fees, and for 4 years you can claim for a year.
Okay.
So if you work in Cyril's Presidential Youth Initiative for 1 year, you can claim for 3 months. After 3 months, you have a bigger mental health problem than the person who was unemployed, because you've now been given the possibility and the expectation of a job until you realize somebody lied to you. Now, what you need to do rather is to create a job that is permanent. You need to create environments that are job intensive. In spite of technology being there. Because some people say, yeah, you got technology, job intensive. It's nonsense. You can do both, right? I built a company, didn't appear in your CV.
Yes.
I built a company called Talk IT. Talk IT was a company in trouble back in 2001, 2002. Company in trouble, training solutions provider for very high technical skills.
Yes.
Okay? Cisco. We grew that company. When I say we, I was the CEO. And I was the largest shareholder, and I was the chairman of the company. We grew that company to be the largest training solutions provider in the African continent, with Cisco being our main player. We won Cisco Partner of the Year every year for 7 years.
That's good.
Okay?
Very good.
We won Microsoft Partner of the Year twice in 5 years. Right? What did we do? What we did, there was still Umsobomvu Youth Fund there. I don't know if you heard of Umsobomvu Youth Fund. And I'm here, there's some clown who says they did us a favor. I did them a favor with my team, and we ran a program that was the largest at the time from Umsobomvu Youth Fund to convert young people into employable people. But,
so would you say what Panyaza is doing now with Nancy Spani, it's similar
It's similar to the Presidential Youth Initiative. And they are trying to copy my Tuja project, but they don't know how to because they're very incompetent. You see, you see, when you're incompetent, you don't even know what you don't know. So you try and tinker with something. So you keep taking what you think it says. I heard the other day that Ngesi says, together with another minister, I think Gungubele, they are going to retrain people at the post office so that they can do. I mean, they keep taking parts of my project, but they still not getting it. What was he saying about an ecosystem, right? So for me, Panyaza also has taken a leaf from the Presidential Youth Initiative. There's one or two very good players there, suppliers. I don't want to overgeneralize because there are some companies I know, one or two that are very good. But here's the problem. Even when they market Nasispani, you would have heard they say they are marketing training and employment potential. What is that? What does that mean?
It's not a job that they...
No.
It's not a job.
You see, go back careful. So basically you are saying it's potential. No. So when I was running Talk IT, what I realized was that we used to get 75 to 80% conversion of training to employability.
Okay.
And we used to get awards for this. But I said to my people back then, I said, it's flattering. We're getting all these awards. I won, I was IT Personality of the Year in 2006. I was Businessman of the Year in 2009. So, I mean, that's why when I talk about, I'm talking about knowledge. I'm not talking about being a theoretician. But what would happen is if you're running a program of 1,000 people, and you get 80% at best, what do you do with the 200 people? And 200 of them have already got degrees and are still not getting jobs. So when they came onto your program, they were coming to your program hoping that you're going to get them a job.
Yes.
Right? So now you've got repeated, replicable abuse of the mind and expectation.
So would you say it's... Because I look at it, it started a couple of years ago with your PWP, I think CWP, that they were programs that they were doing, which never lasted. The same with Mampanyas, as they call them, the guys who are with the corps, student teachers. But all of these things are just, as you said, you call them patch jobs. It's just to keep people going.
They are patch jobs and internships that are not meant to, they're temporary jobs, right? And that's because you are dealing, sometimes we need to be kind to people. Sometimes when you are deployed into a position by the person who deploys you, they need to know what your limitations are. I think it's only fair. We all as people have weaknesses, right? I have mine. And fortunately, I've interrogated my weaknesses over the years to know where I'm not good. And therefore, I must get a Bafana who's good or better than me to do that for me so that I can look good.
Better.
But the problem with the guys that are deployed is they've got egos the size of Gauteng. Right? Gauteng is small, the size of a bigger province. Okay? And so what happens is that they come in, they don't know how to do something, but are not surrounded by people who know how to do the thing. Right? So they're really trying to do the best they can, probably.
But they can't
I don't
really
think they're
get
always
it.
corrupt. I don't want to make a generalization that the guys are corrupt. I don't think they're always corrupt. They just always think there is lack of knowing of the aptitude of that particular area. How do we make it work? Right?
So I'm going to jump into this one.
Yes.
You are coming in as a premier of Gauteng under the UDM. You are going into a province that housing is still a problem. Infrastructure is depleting. We are literally just now dealing with a case of buildings burning down in Johannesburg. The question then becomes, how do we ensure the people of Gauteng that they will be safe under your government and they will have houses?
So Gauteng, you remember I said, is on the precipice of a cliff. But South Africa as a whole, including Gauteng, has amazing people. Because I also don't want to leave the impression that because I say some people who are in government and who are even in the private sector, by the way, this is not just a government thing. So the private sector is very good at covering itself up better than government, right? They do things in a much more sophisticated way, but they still mess up. But South Africa has amazing people, very talented people, very warm people, very outgoing people. We want to make things happen.
Yes.
The whole world
knows us
thinks we're amazing, except for ourselves. Because we disrespect each other. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that not only do we have some of the best natural resources in this country, but we have some of the best human resources in this country.
Yes.
So we can make things work provided we surround ourselves with very strong, smart teams that know what they're doing. The emphasis being teams that know what they're doing.
Yes.
And that's what I am going to do first. Okay? Is make sure I have a shit-hot team.
On merits.
On meritocracy. That's how I've built my businesses. That's how I've built things in the world.
So the UDM won't have care deployment.
No, I don't think it would be fair to say it won't have cadre deployment. Everybody in the world has cadre deployment.
Okay.
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody. It's just how you do it, though. It's the trick is in the how. It's making sure that, everybody works with people they know.
Yes.
If let's get like our fella in Mamelodi, I can tell you're going to go fetch some Mamelodi guys. I promise you, right? If let's get away, wherever, So you'll find that everywhere. But I think the trick is this.
Sure.
If I'm going to put you in a position and say, build a house, I must at least know that you've been accredited as a builder.
To know you can build.
As a reputable builder of a house, right? At least you've built something.
Yes.
Right? And surround yourself with people who are architects and quantity surveyors, and people that know what they're doing. That's the difference. Rona, we get somebody who goes to do something and then it's not done. It doesn't, you never see it. Budget is really.
But
Mari, where is
anything.
the thing that we talked about? So for me, how I would do it first is teams. Secondly, is to look at whether we shouldn't be reprioritizing the budget of Gauteng. 165 billion is not a bad figure.
Yes.
70% of which is split between health and education currently. But both health and education are in an abysmal condition.
True.
How is that possible with 70% of 165 billion? Something is
Something's
not
wrong.
make sure.
Connect off.
Something is not make sure, right? And we need to know, for me, it's the incompetence of the people that are there. It's the lack of knowledge, it's the lack of managerial experience, it's the lack of leadership, right? It's a lack of team dynamics and understanding what to do. So one needs to look at it and say, okay, can we reprioritize this budget? How do we look at this budget differently? How do we make health work? How do we make quality education work? But how do we make ensure that we do economic development and maybe give a bigger slice to economic development? How do we look at service delivery? How do we go and make sure that the people of Mamelodi, Soshanguve don't end up drinking toxic water, right? How do we make sure that we don't lose water 48% through leaking pipes? Because Joburg, after Durban, is the second in how much water we lose. We lose 48% of water through the pipes. Okay, let alone that we haven't planned well for the future because we've grown. That's a different problem. But how do we do that? So that's the reprioritization. Thirdly, the UDM talks a lot about an Indaba, a convention.
Yes.
I see some parties are finding it fashionable now. I don't know if they mean it or if it's just because they thought, this is a good idea. And an Indaba, if you think about it, is very important because we are saying, if you are practical, we have one of the most practical manifestos in my view, one of the most solution-oriented.
Yes.
It doesn't promise you pie in the sky and promise you things that we may never even be able to deliver.
True.
It says there are things we can do, but there are things we need to do with others. There are things that we need to go into a coalition and have a collective discussion as a people and say, okay, land is a problem.
How do we...
But we have a complex country. Our country is complex. Our country is not like any other country, I must tell you. And that's why I love South Africa. Is that we have inbit complexities. We have the rich, very rich, and the very poor. We have the very elitist and the very humble. We have the very...
It's black and white. There's no gray line.
No. Then we have the white and the black. And then we have the ones in the middle.
The missing middle.
The missing middle as well, right? So we need to sit and say, land. How do we deal with land in a way that is going to be good for South Africans to live together? I said somewhere, and somebody laughed. I said, South Africa needs what when I was running the music industry, I would refer to as a Mandoza Nkalakata effect. And I call it a Mandoza Nkalakata effect because crossover appeal is very important when you're in the industry. You can't just come up with music with hooks that are meant for people that grew up in my rural village. Because my rural village may have 20 people, which means nobody's going to buy your music, right? You need to also have hooks that are going to take you to Lady Grey and Alua North, and then all of a sudden you've got 1,000, 2,000 people. Okay, so you can live from this music, right? So crossover appeal is important. You got to know we are a country with a very huge trust deficit. We don't trust each other. And we don't trust each other. Sometimes it's not our fault. It's a historical thing. We had colonization. No. First we had Jan van Riebeeck, who came and did whatever he liked in 1652. Then we had colonization in the middle from the English. Then we had apartheid that followed. So all those things make us very, and we don't trust each other.
I think maybe just to get to the question, on the issue of housing, you have a lot of squatter camps in Gauteng. You have a lot of people actually pulling up squatter camps wherever because people need
housing.
To be here.
They need to live. They need something over there, but they need to have a roof over their heads.
Yes. Yeah. So will the government under you give out free housing, or will you subsidize them?
So again, I don't want to run into free housing, but I want to run into a solution for everybody. If that solution means free housing, then that's what we're going to have to do, right? Let me explain for me what we need to do first. So for 30 years, we've failed to undo the apartheid architecture of this country.
Yes.
Right? For me, that is evil. I'm sorry, that's evil.
Yes.
So you have our people having to still wake up at 4 a.m. to come for a job that starts at 9.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you go home, you must leave again. Kabo 4, kabo 5, full of 9. You must help them with their schoolwork and whatever. So for me, first is to have smart people that say, how can we relook this thing? How can we look at how we build smart cities? How can we look at how we look at not only rural but peri-urban and make sure that where people are,
that's where the jobs are.
We create jobs. We have economic stimulation and activation and incubation there.
Okay.
Right? And if we fail to do that, then we look at how we make sure people don't end up living in squatter camps and whatever. We find a solution for that as well.
I think also one issue, when you're in Gauteng, it's either you have a security company looking over your house, or it's either, I'm sure you have seen over 100 security companies in this province. Yeah. You have the policing, you have Amapanyaza. How do we deal with crime in our city? How do we make Gauteng safe for everyone? Do we introduce harsher sentences, or what do we do under your government to ensure that the people of Gauteng feel more safe?
I have a brother who's a policeman, and I therefore know a lot of policemen through him. That I talk to about the failures of the system, why the system fails. Same reason the health hospitals fail, lack of managerial experience, having people over them who know nothing about what it is they're supposed to be in charge of. That's the first thing that we need to do, right? And I think we have no business having a bigger private sector security personnel than the government police. I think for me, that's also an elitist kind of state, because not everybody can afford to have a security guard.
But
only people with money.
But somebody also will say, Premier, that we are understaffed. The police is understaffed.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying we must reprioritize our budgets. I don't understand how we are under... You know, there are certain roles you can't be understaffed for in society.
Yes.
The police, the teachers, the nurses, those people, you can't be understaffed. These are important people that build people.
Yes.
So when you talk about human capital development, and some of us pick it up later, you must get a base from where it came from.
Yes.
And it's those people that do it. So coming back to your question though, so for me, it's to rationalize, reprioritize, look at that from a budgetary point of view. But having done all of that, you remember I mentioned moral regeneration when we started. Now, one of the things we have in our manifesto as well is, again, I had another party wanting to do this now these days, conscription. You know, in the olden days, we had conscription that had a negative connotation to it.
Yes.
Because it was meant to be white shooting at black.
Yes.
Certainly when I went to vets, it was a big deal, you know? And now we have an opportunity where everybody is supposed to be a patriot under nation building, which is the other thing we failed to do, is to build a nation that we are all proud of under one flag, right? So as part of nation building and patriotism, you want your people to go and learn how to protect their country, right? But in doing so, you create some jobs at an early age right? 17, 18, they are in a job. They are responsible for making basic things. Make your bed yourself. Make yourself something yourself. Be fit, physical training. Train your mind and all those things. Discipline. Jobs, discipline, right? So moral regeneration starts to set in. You're starting to set a different kind of example. And then the criminals, the more you shame them, the more you jail them, the better. The harsher the sentence, the better. Sure. You also need to look at countries like Singapore as to how they focus their energy, not on the small guy who steals bread, but on the guy who steals a building and steals a bridge that we never see.
Yes.
Yeah. To say, how do we do that? And if need be, again, the Ndaba probably and the convention would be one of the things it talks about. Maybe we must even consider the death sentence. Because why not? Again, what we've done is we've stigmatized certain things, like a conscription was stigmatized as being an apartheid thing. But we've also stigmatized the death sentence as being an apartheid thing. But actually, when people are repeated offenders and are just refusing to come right, and people kill a 5-year-old or rape a 7-year-old, come on. I mean, how many times do you want this to happen? And you still say, no, we must look at the sanctity of life or whatever this big English we use. That's nonsense. So the harsher, the better. Because one thing you're going to realize, you're going to be harsh once, you're going to be harsh twice.
It never stops.
People are going to behave. No, people are going to behave once you're harsh. Because they know that there is no play. It's serious.
Okay, I think I get that. And I think that's the next question that the people of Gauteng wants to know. Coming from the streets, social media has been speaking about this. Put South Africa first. There's even a movement called Put South Africa First. Illegal immigration.
Yeah.
What is the UDM position? Are you deporting or are you naturalizing?
I love this question. Because in the next 2 days, there's something we are announcing, but I'm not telling you, not even on your show.
Come on.
No,
come on.
No,
give me.
I'll be in trouble. I'll be fired in my party. My bosses will fire me.
Yes.
But just stay watching it. Let me answer first. So immigration per se is a good thing. All over the world. Nations and countries are stronger by mixing with others.
True.
Diversity is always such an important element in who we are as a people.
True.
Right? However, we all need to protect ourselves as well as a nation and build ourselves as a nation and make sure there's economic prosperity for our people as a nation. So we need to be very circumspect on who we allow in and why.
Yes.
That's point number one.
True.
That's the legal part of it. For example, when we do audits, as I mentioned earlier, skills, whether we have them or not, we might feel we need doctors from Cuba. We might feel we need skills from India, ICT, I don't know, whatever, right? But when you talk illegal immigration, this is not negotiable. I'm sorry. We can't continue. I mean, I heard another party say we must open the borders. Please. Kanti open borders for what?
Africa is one.
What is this Africa is one? But there's no borders in Europe. And these are the same people who tell us we must not be Eurocentric. Don't be Eurocentric. Remember Africa. But there's no borders in Europe. And when I lived in Europe, there were borders everywhere.
Yeah,
right? And I think they confuse two things. One is having some kind of bilateral arrangements in terms of your passports and visas.
And border control.
And border control. I used to cycle all the time. I'm a cyclist. So I'm an endurance sportsman. I used to race bicycles. I would travel with my bicycle and I would cycle from Geneva into Ferney-Voltaire in France and back. And nobody would stop me. True. But I always have my little piece of paper at the pocket in case I get stopped, because you will get stopped,
yes.
Right? But if you're in a car, I can tell you you're going to be stopped every time, right? So I think they confuse that and they say borders are open. But the second thing I think they confuse is this, Lerona, we like to speak English all the time. So when you talk about the mobility of skills, I think other people think it's people that walk through the border. I think. Because mobility is so that we, as a people, have skills that can be used anywhere in the world.
True.
Especially as we enter the future of work, artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution era.
Yes.
We want to have skills that can be used anywhere in the world, right? But that does not mean you must open the border. So for me, you need much stricter border control, much stricter processing of who comes in and who doesn't come in. And we don't have people loitering and floating around and doing strange things. And we don't even know who's there. We don't even know that they're there. So you don't know who you're chasing. You're chasing ghosts. No, you close the border.
Let's make it practical.
Yeah.
You get into office, the ones that are already here, what do you do with them?
I take them back.
Clear.
Yeah, they're the ones that are illegal.
Yes.
When they get caught, they go home.
So you're going to reopen Lindela?
They go home. I'm sorry, I'm not opening. I don't know the name Lindela, but I wasn't here if it was called Lindela. You go home.
Yes.
So you do it right. Yeah, because you see, the problem with saying no, we're going to have a moratorium for the ones that are already here. You create an expectation for too many people. I mean, already we've got millions of people from other parts of the continent, right, who are here legally. And that's great. That's great.
Yes.
Some of them are our wives or our husbands or girlfriends. That's beautiful. But the ones who are here illegally are not going to add. We've got this NHI now. I had a TikTok live session yesterday. I had 1,900 people coming in just for 45 minutes, 72 questions and comments. And the concerns of people are legitimate. They're saying, but we've got so many people that are not South African. So how are we going to know this NHI that already worries us about the missing middle that's going to be taxed to death? And then you've got people that are going to go and say, hi, Nami, I've got a wound here. I've got a this here. And this person is not from here, right? And for me, that's unacceptable. And I want to make this very clear because I think it's trite, but it's not as evident. When I say all illegal immigrants are going to go, I don't mean only the ones that come from Africa. I mean all of them. Because they are the ones also that come from countries that, because they have a lighter complexion, nobody checks them, or they came here with money in the bank, so nobody. It doesn't matter where you come from. You came from Portugal, you came from China. I don't care where you came from. You are illegal, you must go home. Go apply properly. And if you are found to have done some ugly things, don't even bother to apply. Don't come back. Leave and never come back.
Yeah.
Premier,
Gauteng province once again. I'm focusing on Gauteng for now, but this was a national issue.
Yeah.
We have had load shedding for a while. Now we don't have load shedding.
And that's a joke.
Right. Now it's like you have uncapped electricity. You can even hold a stamp and a dombo. But then the question then becomes, how do we ensure that this remains? We have a permanent solution on our grid that people will not have to struggle, and even businesses in Gauteng don't have to struggle with load shedding.
Don't you think first we need to find out why we had load shedding? For me, I think that because I'm scared now of this matter. This matter is very confusing. I mean, we're now on day what? Probably almost 60 days now. 52 days.
Yeah,
I mean, no load shedding. So for me, I'm curious. So you've had all kinds of stories about how these things are created. Somebody's trying to make it so we privatize and their friends can collect and do the renewable this and they're doing the, So you start now to think maybe it's true.
I mean, because I thought we were burning diesel. That's why we have so much electricity. But it turns out that Eskom has actually decreased.
It's decreased.
And I'm like, then what is the justification for this?
But no, the consumption levels have gone down. But we're going into winter. What does that mean? I'm not sure I understand. How did that work? So I think the best thing we need to do is to first find out what was the real problem. It's like going to a doctor. All the time they give you medicine for a condition, but without looking at the real cause. Let's know the real cause of the problem. Because once we know the real cause, then we will know, did we have a problem in the first place? If we did have a problem in the first place, okay. Then we need to look at other alternatives of grid. We need to look at wind. We need to look at solar. We need to look at how we partner with Norwegians who are very big on renewable energy and many other countries that are good at doing things differently. We've got to be alive to that, right? There's all kinds of opportunities as well for business in those areas. And some of them are even very aesthetically pleasing. I always like when I go to Cape Town, I see those windmills. They look so sexy for me. That you see all these white windmills and yet they're creating electricity. Why not? We have a beautiful country, right? But I think the first point of call for me as the Premier of Gauteng would be to call all the bright brains, including the current CEO and the chairperson of Eskom, to say, kahle, what is it that was happening? And I think for me, like most South Africans, I have a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. So are we going to have load shedding on the 30th of May? Right? So you don't know. You're thinking, because it looks like somebody just goes and presses a button somewhere. Oh, yeah, but and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, kumnyama, I'm the boss. So
I think I look at also the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, where we are also exempted from load shedding. And now it's election again.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, why is this load shedding seasonal? And
it's event based.
It's event based. Right. So I think also some people have said maybe let's look at maybe finding ways in terms of having IPPs. Introducing solar energy as well.
Absolutely. No, that's why I'm saying you need renewable energy, you need solar, you need wind, you need all these battery storage. You know, there's so many opportunities of what we can do. And we're a fortunate country, we're a fortunate continent. We've got these things in abundance, right? We shouldn't have other people leading in these things. We should be leading, right? There's no reason we're not. And we need jobs. Those are not by themselves are huge job opportunities, right? So for me, industries, creating enterprises, sustainable enterprises, growing our economy, and increasing our productivity. Every time you got load shedding, productivity goes down. Now, one of the things, by the way, I must tell you before we wrap up, that I found absolutely stunning. No, not stunning. Stunning is not the right word. You see, English can be very difficult sometimes. It's not stunning. What I find astonishing is every debate I've been, when I talk about productivity, it looks like everybody's surprised. Nobody talks about productivity. All my Gauteng premier colleagues, they don't talk about productivity. And yet we're a country that in terms of competitiveness, about 12 years ago, we need to be about 44 out of 61 countries in competitiveness. We are now 61 out of 63 countries.
Oh, man.
And there are people who believe we could touch 63 if Ukraine and Russia stop fighting. And they were included in the calculation. Right? How can that be? Come on. And if we don't have productivity enhancement and you don't have competitiveness, how are you going to grow your economy?
True.
No one talks about it. Second thing that nobody talks about, that for me, I think you guys need to push, you guys that have impact and influence, is we need to start talking very deliberately about the informal economy. The Kasi township economy, guys, is the biggest opportunity that our people have. All the people that are black, the majority of them, certainly.
Yes.
Right? Come from there.
I was coming to that part of small, medium enterprise township economy because it's been said a lot of times about how they want to improve it. But we always see is Pakistani shops, Somalian shops. If it's hardware, it's Chinese. But we don't really see our people at the forefront of this. And the question would be, do we then restructure these shops and take everything back to black people? Do we limit business to say it must first be a local person before it becomes somebody else? How do we ensure that there is growth and our people tend to participate as well?
So somehow it touches on the migration question that we had earlier on. There's also an element of peace that you want. You know peace, individual peace, and collective societal peace is very important for your happiness index. People chase happiness instead of chasing peace. Because if you get peace, you get happy. Now, if you have Pakistani people already running cafes and whatever, so the first question for me is whether are they legally here or not? We must answer that question.
Yes.
If they are legally here, you're not going to go now and uproot a person just because you decided now I'm going to change things about cafes and whatever, because you're going to create a situation that has no peace.
True.
But Kasi economy is much bigger than that. For example, I chair a company called Kasi Connect. Kasi Connect is an AI-inspired platform that takes people from the Kasi to showcase the things they do in the Kasi. All the innovation that they have, it showcases it to Kasi and Kasi to the world.
Yes.
And is able to generate attention and generate attractiveness and make sure that there is an economy that's running. It's just one bad example. But what you also need to do in doing your Kasi economy is to look, because each Kasi is different to the other Kasi.
True.
It's not the same. So if you are in Soweto, you're not going to do the same things you're going to do in Mamelodi, or do the same thing you're going to do in Venterveld somewhere, or do the same thing you do in Vollies, in Volmaranstad in the northwest, and so on. You're going to do different things that work there. Issues like, for example, like hemp. You're going to ask a question, because that's one of the things that is such a big opportunity. But we've been holding it back. Why? Because I think we want the multinationals to make as much money from it first. Yeah, because I get it, we get bought by multinationals.
Yeah.
It's the same thing they do with the music industry. The Copyright Act is messed up because multinationals, the FANG countries, are the ones interfering. You know, your Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Right? Same thing here in the Kasi. How do we ensure that we prioritize what is suited for each area? If you go to East London, for example, I've been told very reliably, outside East London, outside the Cassis there, that proteas that would be grown there will be the best proteas in the world, better than the ones we grow in the Western Cape. Because South Africa is already known for their protea plant. Right? I mean, it's something you don't think about. But it could be the best in the world, which means we're creating short, medium, and long-term employment. St. John's, Dacha grows like bananas there. And there's also something called Mpepo. I don't know if you ever heard of Mpepo, sage.
Yes.
Do you know that Americans can't get enough of Mpepo because they are trying to find Africa in themselves? So they come to St. John's, they take the Mpepo, they cleanse things, they're starting industries in the US, they want to start farmers. Yes, these are opportunities, my dear brothers and sisters. All we need to do is empower the youth of this country. All these undecided voters, these young people, undecided voters and first-time voters. These are the people I'm targeting in Night UDM. I'm saying, hey, Beyonce, I keep repeating what Beyonce says. Beyonce says power is taken. It's never given.
Never.
The only way you take power, go vote responsibly.
As we're about to close up, I just came back from a country where everything works, if that's the way to say. The trains are working, the buses are working, the taxis are working. And in South Africa, the trains are dead. The taxis are almost dying. The roads are a mess. This is Gauteng, the hub of the African continent. What can we do about it?
What is this country you came from?
Sorry?
What is this country you came from?
Oh, Israel, Jerusalem.
Oh, okay. All right. That was interesting. I was interested in finding out. So, the precipice I talk about is that mess. Why I talk about South Africa being a turnaround case. So I'm a turnaround specialist, by the way. So when I was talking about Talk IT, it is but one company that had multiple of millions in losses that I, leading the team, was able to turn it around to being the most profitable and built it in 27 countries. So, you know, there is a little bit of experience. I'm not talking, I'm sucking my thumb, but I'm coming up with stuff. So when you've got so much wrong, you need to have, again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, good teams that are going to identify and analyze what is the biggest problem we have. What is the thing that we need to start with? Do we start with what? Do we start with poverty? Do we start with creating jobs? What do we start with? Right? Because when you're turning around anything, you also need to ensure you have confidence for your team and confidence in the populace.
Okay.
Right? To see him and these guys are doing something so that they can come and help you. Because you also need people to believe and to buy into it. So I was starting to say earlier on, but you wanted, I think, to move on to other things, to say there's low-hanging fruit we must fix. Low-hanging fruit, fix the bloody potholes. Low-hanging fruit, fix the bloody water leaks. Right? Low-hanging fruit, make sure that we have roads that work. Right? Infrastructure is good. People feel good about themselves. Already happiness index is going up. Foreign direct investment comes in. As Gauteng Premier, I have relationships in about 187 countries. And it's no joke, right? I mean, for me, you can give me any country in the world. I'll give you a name of a person that I can talk to, and ambassadors I can talk to, and ministers I can talk to, and trade unions I can talk to.
Yes.
I believe Gauteng should not rely on South Africa having bilaterals with other countries. Gauteng as a province is bigger than most economies, right? Why not partner with other provinces, province to province, in other countries? Why not? To exchange knowledge, to exchange ideas, to get things that they do better than us and we show them what we can do, and focus on it being bi-directional and bi-respectful. Not one way, where they come and they take our things and then they leave. No. Mustn't work like that. So for me, that's my idea of a Gauteng that works. When I say make Gauteng respected again, it's not I woke up in the morning and I had a good dream kind of thing. No, it's because I believe in us as a country and what we have and what we can do.
Premier Mthunzi Mdwaba, my brother, I'm about to give you a minute. The camera is behind me, right there. Tell me, why should the people of Gauteng vote for you to lead this province for the next 5 years? There you go.
Because I have the experience. I'm a player. I'm a sports person. And as a sports person, I believe you give opportunities to people who work hard so that they qualify to be the ones that are in the team, not the reserve team. Some people want to be there even though they're incompetent. I can't have incompetence in my team. I've got to have teams of smart people who are smarter than me when necessary because they make me look good. Secondly, we say corruption destroys freedom. It's a big mantra in the UDM, and we've proved how we get rid of corruption. For us, it's not theory, it's real. And also, it is very important that we know that we're going to coalition governments. You need people who have the experience and not driven by ego to understand that the people are far more important than their egos, that they need to be able to work together in finding a solution to the challenges we have for a safe South Africa, for a South Africa that is truly the economic hub, and Gauteng that is the centerpiece of South Africa.
Thank you. That's UDM Premier Candidate Mthunzi Mdwaba. Did he get your vote? Will you be voting for the UDM in the next couple of days? Please share your comments on the comment section. Click like, share the content as well. Subscribe. This was Manifesto Unpacked. I am Bafana Modise. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.